Hello there. My name is Andrew Steers and welcome to my artist talk. My background as an artist, I work professionally as an illustrator, a storyboard artist, and a comic book artist. I also teach art here at Green River College, and I have also taught at a number of different schools. So in this artist talk, I'm going to go through a bunch of my work and kind of give an overview of my general process towards art making and the general advice that I give students that are looking to get better at art and become stronger artists. So a lot of my advice will be most applicable for people that are doing representational art, specifically if you want to get into animation, storyboards, comic books, concept art, video game art, anything like that. This general art practice will be applicable for. So down here is my website and my Instagram handle. Feel free to check out my work or give me a follow after that. All right, so for this talk, I kind of will go over my work and talk about how I separate it and how I work creating new work and also how I work practicing and getting better at my craft. So when I sit down to create some new work, I want to separate into one of these two categories. Am I creating new original work? Am I creating a comic book? Am I creating storyboards for a job? Am I doing illustrations for a book? Or am I doing a commissioned fine art painting for someone? Okay, so that's one side of it where I'm creating something new. I'm creating an original piece of work with a specific purpose to it, whether it be an illustration for a book, storyboards for a commercial or animation, or comic books to tell a story. If I'm not doing that sort of work, I'm practicing. So this is a lot of the stuff I learned while I was in art school. So kind of the main thing I do for practicing and the main advice I give to other students that are just looking to become better artists and become better at drawing is drawing from life. So how are you going to do that? So these are the different things that I try and do when I'm practicing. So I want to practice composition. So how do I arrange shapes within a frame? I want to practice color theory. Color theory is one of the most powerful tools we have as artists. It is very emotionally powerful to viewers when they are looking at your work. The kind of colors that you use in there will have a huge impact on the viewer. So you want to practice color theory and have a good grasp of that so you can use that in illustrations and art later on. Another thing I practice a lot is anatomy or drawing the figure, the human figure. How do you draw people? How do you draw people in different poses? How do you draw people realistically? How do you make them look like they have weight? And how do you use the poses that people are taking to help tell a visual story? Okay. And the other thing I need to practice regularly is perspective. So how do I draw three-dimensional shapes? So you may know perspective as like looking down a long roadway with a bunch of straight line buildings. It's basically just making your art have a sense of depth. So even though we're drawing on a two-dimensional surface, which may be in a sketchbook, you want to make it look three-dimensional, give the illusion of three-dimensional space. And that is something that drawing from life is going to help you with. So drawing from life is anytime you are drawing from observation, when you are looking at something and trying to recreate it in your sketchbook. So we'll go over this and I'll start to pull up some work here, but basically all the practice that you do will directly influence the finished work that you're creating. So all of these different things I'm practicing, whether it be composition, color theory, anatomy, or perspective, those are all things I use when I'm creating comic books, storyboards, illustrations, or fine art paintings. So let's start to look at some of my work here, and I will pull up and we'll look at some of the work that I create to practice and some when I'm creating new work. Here's my website, just as a side note, andrewsteers.com. You can look at this. So anyone looking to do work professionally or just to develop your own craft, it's good to get your work up online to show what your finished work looks like. So usually I will have the finished work here on my website. So as you can see, I have these different sections for storyboard, comic, and illustrations. I do have a little section of drawings. And then you can also follow my Instagram if you like. This is more of my practice drawing. So I post a lot of stuff from my sketchbook, a lot of things I just do quickly, but it's slightly different type of work that I put here on Instagram than I put on my professional website. But most artists these days need some sort of Instagram or social media to promote themselves as well. Okay, let's start by looking at some of my images. So this, I gathered a bunch of images done for practice. Okay, so this is a bunch of different things, and we'll start to go through these and I'll explain what I was thinking and how that will help me down the road. So you have to learn to love the process of practicing. So no artist is ever going to just stop practicing. It really excites me as an artist because I know I can keep getting better until I'm very, very old, until I can't hold a pencil anymore or see my sketchbook. But I still want to get better. I still want to develop my skills. I'm not where I want to be as an artist. So I try and every day I try and sit down and draw from life at some point. So I also like to go outside and draw as much as I can. So go to different places. When I travel someplace new, I bring my sketchbook and draw. When I go to, it may just be a new place near my home that I've never been, or it may be, going to a completely new city. I bring my sketchbook. So this drawing here is from a day when I went to the aquarium here down in the waterfront in Seattle, the Seattle Aquarium. So I brought my sketchbook with me and spent the day drawing all sorts of different animals. So this is a really good practice. So especially if you ever want to draw animals in any of your illustrations or artwork, drawing animals will be important. Animals and humans have a lot of similar anatomy, so it's going to help with that as well. So these were done in Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, which is the black line work, and then some watercolor for the color you see there was kind of thrown on top after I did the line work. So this was definitely a fun challenge to do. Obviously the fish are constantly moving, so you have to draw very quick. If anyone wants to go into storyboards, comic books, animation, even concept art and game art, things like that, you have to know how to draw quickly because there's always deadlines. You always need to do quick turnarounds. So I had to sketch these fish very quickly as I was working. They were moving, but they all have very unique shapes to them. I had to kind of try and capture the overall pattern and the overall feel of this fish, even in a very quick turnaround. So it was a great day there. I got to draw a bunch of fish. There were also, birds and sea lions and different animals that I got to draw that day. But here's the collection of fish here. So that's a great way to practice. Any time you go someplace new, just bring your sketchbook and draw that. All right, so this is an urban sketch. So I do a lot of urban sketching. Some of you may have done that before or seen other artists that do urban sketching. But that's just basically going, usually it's in a city type location. But you don't have to go far to find something to draw. So this is just a few blocks from my house here. And this helps me to practice perspective. So we have a foreground, middle ground, and the distant background there. So hopefully this is starting to look like three-dimensional space. But when I create a drawing like this, my main focus is storytelling. So I'm not as concerned about being super accurate with this drawing. Maybe if I was an oil painter, I might sit down and do a 3-hour-long study of what this location looks like. But since my concern is more about drawing quickly, this is probably about a 20-minute drawing. And what I want to focus on was storytelling. So I don't mean telling a big, epic, long story. I mean creating a fun image that people can look at and relate to. So things that help to set off this storytelling are just little things like the car, the trash bins here, the wires coming across the house, the little chimneys, all those little details. I find that is what people really like and people really relate to and react to when they look at my work. And that's what I really like. I think images that have great storytelling are the ones that really interest me, and I think those are the ones that really make artists famous or help people to get jobs is, can you tell an interesting and engaging story? And all these little details, brick patterns, gutters, planter boxes, these are things that I will put in to maybe a comic book page or a storyboard later on as I'm creating those original work. So yeah, this is just a few minutes from my house, so there's never an excuse for not having something to draw, because you don't have to go too far to do that. All right, so practicing drawing people. So this is also near my house. I'm lucky to live right near Golden Gardens Park in Seattle. So these are all very quick sketches, very quick sketches. Each one took probably 30 seconds to 2 minutes, not much longer than that. So there's a few here. These ones are using the pocket brush pen with the thicker black lines, and these ones with the thinner lines are just using a thinner technical pen. Pentel High Tech is the pen I use for that. But again, these ones are about storytelling. I love to, think about the pattern that's on clothes, or the little accessories, the hats people are wearing, the accessories that are sitting next to someone, their little water bottles and drink coolers and things like that. So again, I'm not worried about specifically accurately capturing, the anatomy and everything. I'm worried about getting the pose down. So what is the person doing? Are they sitting? Are they laying on their stomach? Are they leaning back on their arms? Are they walking? Whatever it may be. I want to get that pose down. Then add the fun little storytelling elements to it, which are things like bags, hats, sunglasses. And that's what really kind of creates these unique characters, where we've all seen someone like this with a cute little dog sitting out, where the dog's looking at you, but the person's out looking at the water. So that's what really interests me when I'm trying to draw people. So here's an example of drawing on location again. I live on a sailboat, and whenever we take our sailboat to go on trips, even just short trips or longer trips, I'm bringing my sketchbook with me. And when I go out and experience new places, meet new people, see new things, draw all those as best I can, that really just excites me and energizes me for when I come back to my studio to create an illustration or to create a comic book. So you'll see I have some illustrations I'll show you later on. A lot of my illustrations and artwork deals with boats and the water and things like that, because that's what surrounds me and that's what I know. So creating stories about what you know is going to be the best way to do that, and kind of creating the most honest stories. So this sort of stuff really just kind of energizes me and gives me a lot of inspiration when I want to create a illustration or storyboard or comic book story later on. Similar idea here. This is from another sailing trip over to Port Madison on Bainbridge Island, but just drawing the little boathouses here. And again, the thing I like about this are the little details of the flag, the wire they have here, the extra little boat, the little planter box down there. So that's what's I really like to include all that little stuff as well as the big major structures within this scene. And this is probably a 10 to 15 minute sketch. So again, very quick. This is again from a sailing trip. So about 6 months ago, I got an iPad with Procreate on it. So you'll see a lot of my new work or newer work is done on the iPad. So this is done from the iPad, but it is still done from life and from observation. This is a boat on a mooring ball that was next to us. So in this one, I really was excited about the color. I thought that's what really told the story here. All of those, it was sunset, so there's a bunch of golden light on the hillside. There were also kind of just those yellow and orangey grass and bushes behind the boat. So when I looked at that boat, what I really wanted to try and capture was that warm color scheme of all those different plants and bushes behind that boat. But now that I have an iPad, it really just gives me another option to create art on the go. So I basically have an entire little studio just on my iPad using Procreate. Okay, so this is before the coronavirus, as you can see. So that's one of the biggest things I miss when the coronavirus hit, is I used to go every week to a figure drawing group. Most cities and neighborhoods have a number of different figure drawing groups, either at schools or community centers, things like this. This one is at the University of Washington. It's just about $5 or $10. You anyone can go, beginners or experienced artists. But that is another place where I get a lot of inspiration, and I get to practice drawing people in anatomy and things like that. So sometimes I'll just draw the model. Usually if it's a shorter pose, I'll just draw the model, but this one was a 20-minute pose. So I drew the model in about 5-10 minutes and then spent the rest of the time drawing all that background. I really like to include this background because that adds to the story. So it puts this naked guy sitting on a pillow in a little more context. So we get to draw all these other people in the background, all the little storytelling details, the clock and the door, so you can see that's an art classroom. And I get to just kind of practice create an entire composition with this person being the focal point and everything else supporting that main focal point. So I'll have a few more from figure drawing groups, but drawing people from real life, again, is the best. Since coronavirus hit, I've been drawing people from photographs more, but as much as you can, draw it from people from real life and then supplement with photographs as well. It's not bad to draw from photographs, but you don't want to only do that. You want to draw from life and then draw some in photographs. This is another boat. This is one of my neighbors here at the marina. But what I liked about this one is all the little storytelling details. The fenders, the dirt on the boat, all the little details that can tell this is a used boat. It's been sailing a lot. It's kind of beat up, kind of dirty, but I think that's what makes it more interesting. These are all people from cafes and coffee shops here. So again, that's what's great about drawing people. So if you have a chance to go out, it's a little harder during coronavirus, but to go out and draw people in public, it's a great way to draw a diverse group of people. So one of my mistakes early on before I went to art school is I kind of drew the same type of character, same male character over and over and over. When I went to art school, I was really introduced to drawing things I wasn't used to. So drawing people in costume, drawing all sorts of different body types, all sorts of different ages of people, drawing all sorts of different hairstyles, drawing people with hats, drawing people with glasses, and being able to draw a wide variety of people. So drawing people in public is a great way to do that because you're not going to get just one type of person. You're going to get a diverse group of people to draw. Here's another one from figure drawing group. I think this was at the same University of Washington location. Same thing, model, and then background details and storytelling elements here. But they do a good job of having lots of different types of models as well. Sometimes having props like draperies as well is a great way to do it. I have a few costume figure drawings as well. Same idea here. This one is, rather than the technical pen, this is with the brush pen and then some watercolors I put on after I do all the line work with the brush pen. So another urban sketch here. This is also near my house. I really like telephone poles, so I try and include those any chance I get. You'll see some of my illustrations have telephone poles as well. And this just gives me, stuff to build up in my mental library. So when I go to draw a city scene for a comic book, I'll be like, okay, I can fill up the sidewalk with cars, put some funky looking chimneys on the roof, make sure there are some telephone poles along the street, and then mix that in with some organic shapes of trees. So again, focusing about storytelling, and storytelling has nothing to do with how well you draw. I mean, this car is not necessarily, drawn that well, but it works with the overall composition, the overall story of this location. Another one near my house. Again, don't have to go far to find something new to draw. But same idea here. This is a combination of the technical pen with the Pentel brush pen used for the solid black areas. So I also like drawing with pen because you can't erase. So if you go out and do sketching from life or drawing from models, draw in pen because you're forced to go forward. I find when people draw with pencil, you spend a little bit too much time being careful. And you don't want to be careful. You want to go quick, you want to be bold, and you want to get the drawing done. I mean, with a pencil, you can erase and redraw and erase and redraw and try and get it exactly perfect. But the point of drawing in your sketchbook is not about drawing perfect. It's about practicing, capturing the essence of a place, capturing the story of a location, and then working on the composition, the perspective, whatever that may be as well. Here's another one. This is from a sailing trip up to the San Juan Islands with a lighthouse out on the cliff. To just kind of show you that process of observing something and transferring it to a two-dimensional surface of a sketchbook. Here's a figure drawing with costumes, so it's really good to practice nude figure drawing and then also practice clothed figure drawing. So it's going to be easier to draw someone with clothes on or a costume on if you know what the structure of the body is doing underneath. Where is the hip box? Where's the elbow? Okay, what is this pinch doing here? What is the spine doing? So you can't see all of that stuff all the time when someone's wearing clothes, but you have an idea of where those different things are because I've practiced drawing those nude models before. Similar idea here, but I drew this musician. And again, I wanted to capture the character and the story. I mean, this hand looks kind of funky, which doesn't really matter. The proportions are kind of off, but again, what I like about this one is the story of this dude playing an instrument. Another one from Figure Drawing Group. And practice as many different body types as you can. So as you can see, all the models I drew had very different body types. So you don't want to get stuck just drawing one type of person, one type of character. So this was done on my iPad on a program called Heavy Paint, which is a really cool drawing program. It's a little bit more simplified than Procreate, if anyone's used Procreate before. But it's all about drawing all of these individual small shapes, and you can go pretty quick with it. But this is just a still life I set up on my table. I had a jar and a lemon sitting around, so I was like, oh, might as well draw it. So this allows me to practice the color theory. So looking at the color of that lemon and saying, I know the lemon's yellow, but the highlights are going to be a different yellow. The shadow area is going to be a different yellow. There's going to be some bright reflected light in there. There's going to be some cool highlights on there. And when you look at that and try and match the color as close as possible, that's what's going to help you understand the color theory. So looking at something, observing it, and trying to match those colors as closely as possible. Here's a watercolor version of that. So this is a watercolor painting, so I'm looking at this sky. So what color is this sky? I analyze. Okay, it's a cool gray. So it's slightly cool, a little bit of blue in there, but mostly it's a desaturated gray. Okay, what color is this part of the land? That is a darker desaturated blue-green. So it's kind of bluish greenish, but it's dark and it's desaturated. So that's basically how you're going to study the color when drawing from life. You're looking at something in front of you, and if in this case it's watercolor paint, I'm going to try and mix that color as closely as it can. Or if I'm working on my iPad, like for this one, I'm going to try and create that color digitally. It's the same idea whether you're doing it digitally or with a traditional medium, oil paints or watercolor. But it's that same idea, looking at color and trying to analyze it, ask yourself, what is that color and can I recreate that color? So this is done in Procreate using some oil brushes. So I try and pretend it is traditional. I'm not going back and erasing stuff. I'm working on just one layer. And all these brushes, I learned oil painting in art school, so I use that same process even when I'm working digitally, and kind of just trick my mind and pretend I'm working in oil paints. I just prefer working digital a lot of time because it's so convenient. No cleanup, no mess, no setup. And it's just a lot easier and more convenient overall. I'll just go through a few of these a little bit quicker. Another landscape painting from Sailing Trip. Another lighthouse. Another plein air oil painting on my iPad. Some more telephone poles in there, as you can see. This is down near Green River College, but same idea there, just matching colors, getting a sense of depth and perspective in there as well, and always working on composition. So how do I fit that into a frame? These are all quick study poses. If you want to go into animation, illustration, concept art, anything like that, you have to learn to draw quickly. For my storyboard jobs, I oftentimes have to draw, it could be 30 to 50 frames in a day, so I have to be able to draw them quickly. So these small ones are 1-minute poses, medium-sized ones are 2-minute poses, then these biggest ones are 5-minute poses. So 1s, 2s, and 5s. So drawing quickly also gets you a lot of groundwork. You go through a lot of poses, and each one is going to just make you a little bit better. So the more you can do, the quicker you will improve. Same idea here, another set of quick studies, different sort of pin, different model. But 1-minute, 2-minute, and 5-minute poses again. I really enjoy quick study poses. They're a lot of fun. Some more clothed figure. This is from Dr. Sketches. I think they're on hold during COVID would be my guess. But they have drawing groups all over the country. So Seattle has one that does poses every other month, I think. Most cities have a Dr. Sketchy group. It might even be an international group. But they get really unique models. So this model's name was Ruby Mimosa. She was a burlesque dancer, and she had a bunch of really fun costumes for us to draw. So these ones were done on my iPad here. The rest of these were done in my sketchbook with brush pen and watercolor. But again, she had very inspiring poses because she was having so much fun wearing these costumes and making new poses that really made it fun for us as artists drawing her as well. I'll just go through a few more of these quickly. From the Sailing Travels here. Saw that one. This is looking right off the stern of my boat in the marina where I live. But sunset, so this one was done in heavy paint on the iPad, but trying to match the colors of that sunset to what I see. Another oil painting style study. This is done to practice anatomy here. So I have an actual skull model. And every so often I'll just take it out and then just draw it from different angles. So that's going to help me. You really should be drawing muscles and skeletons, then drawing nude models, then drawing clothed models. So you can, if you understand the bones, you can draw a nude model. If you understand how to draw a nude model, you can draw a clothed model. So it all kind of builds on itself. And another one here. Alright, so all of this stuff just really energizes me and gives me inspiration for when I want to go and create finished work. So here's some examples of finished illustrations. So this is a poster for Ballard. This is the neighborhood I live in Seattle. So obviously has a lot of the similar imagery here of boats and water and mountains. So this was definitely influenced by a lot of the paintings and sketching I do of boats in places around where I live. This was a commissioned piece. So this is when Marshawn Lynch came back to the Seahawks last year. And for this piece, I was really wanting to create energy and excitement and a sense of power here with this player. I'm a huge Seahawks fan, so I've drawn Seahawks players a whole bunch because they get really unique poses and fun. It's basically fun action drawings here. So for this one, I really wanted to exaggerate that pose to show the power and motion and energy, and then combine that with these background, kind of basically just abstract shapes to reinforce that energy and that power and motion. This was for a book I was working on called The Old Man and the Hunter and the Wolf is what it was called. So again, you can see how anatomy of the wolf there was influenced by my anatomy studies. I also have a dog that I draw a lot, so that helps me with drawing of four-legged animals. And then everything else in here, you know, the trees, the mountains, the hills, things like that are all influenced by me doing landscape studies outside. So these ones didn't have a specific purpose. I was just kind of interested in creating some new illustrations for myself. So these were done all in Procreate. And so some general advice in how to just get new ideas for what to draw is I always am keeping a journal and a list of possible illustration and story ideas. So anytime I get an idea of something I may want to draw, I just write it down. I have a digital list going on my phone. And also, if I have story ideas for a comic book, I'll write that down as well. So anytime I feel like I want to create a new illustration, I just kind of refer to that list. So this was on my list. I had their drawing of a deer in a forest. So I created these two drawings, and I kind of wanted to play with different colors. So this one on the left is obviously a lot of cool, darker, desaturated colors. The one on the right is more saturated, warm colors, warm greens, oranges, and yellows. So you can see how those different colors has a very different emotional impact on you. So the color you use to dominate the composition will have a very strong emotional impact on the viewer. This is a book I did called The Inlings. So directly using stuff for the background is all stuff that I've drawn many times in my sketchbook and in different paintings, just drawing trees and hills going off into the distance. And then drawing costume figure drawings help to create what these characters would look like. This is another book cover for the Festival Goer's Guide. So kind of just explaining how to go to festivals, how to have fun, things you need to bring, things you need to think of. But this one, I had a lot of fun with the colors. So having cool colors of these greens and blues against the warmer colors of the bright pinks there. And practicing figure drawing allowed me to get these fun, exciting poses of these people dancing and our kind of festival goddess here flying through the sky in the background. All right, here's a short comic I made so we can read through this. It has no words, so that should be pretty easy. But obviously you can see how this is directly influenced by where I live and what I see on a regular basis. So just a very simple story about an old man and his dog going sailing. So I was experimenting with kind of a new technique. This is supposed to look kind of like watercolors, but it's done digitally. And I just wanted to do a looser style. But drawing around the Northwest and drawing sailboats a lot made this. I had a lot of ideas already before I even started drawing this of what it would kind of look like. I think one of my favorite panels here is this first one, where we see this old beat up marina, again, kind of dirty and tired, all these wires going everywhere. So that's kind of what helped me get the ball rolling on this entire story there. So this is actually a demo I created for my digital illustration class, which I usually teach over the summer at Green River if anyone is interested down the road. So we just got an old man fishing here, but this is my thumbnail. So I figured out where the darks and lights will go. And I also created this color palette to help me figure out what colors I'm going to use. And I believe I used a photograph that I took of a sunset and just pixelated that photo. So then I could start to choose out separate colors of here. So put this orange here in the sky, use this kind of purplish blue here on the mountain, these other grayish blues in the water. And that just kind of gives you a good starting point for colors to use within the illustration. But I was really thinking about warm colors and cool colors combined for this piece. Okay, I'll skip ahead here. So this is an example of a lot of the storyboard work I do, and that's where a lot of my paid work comes from, is doing storyboards. So I really like that, working on storyboards, because it's not about bringing my vision to life. I get to collaborate with the director and figure out how to bring their vision to life. So they bring me in to draw a commercial or draw an animation before they spend the time animating it or filming it, because that costs a lot of money. So I bring in there, I work out all the problems with the director. He gives me a script and a general description of what is going to be animated or filmed. And then I help to kind of just start to visualize that and bring it to life. So this was for, I believe it's the entryway of a hotel in Vegas. And they just have this basically as a giant decorative screen and animation that plays in there. So a lot of money to be spending on an entryway to a hotel. But so it's kind of just like an abstract story here about these fish transforming into these women and swimming around. So I don't quite know where this concept came from, but I enjoyed the process of helping the director to bring this to life, talking it over with him. And then eventually they show this to the client and say, this is what it's going to look like after we're done making it. Here's another one, but it's about rocket launch. Again, these need to be drawn pretty relatively quickly. And here's one of my comic books. So this is a selection from Bomber Girl #2. You can buy Bomber Girl #1 on my website, actually, in the store section, if anyone's interested in that. Bomber Girl #1. And this one is almost done. I'm still working on the text a little bit, spell check, fine-tuning the words a little bit. But for the most part, all the art's done, at least. So obviously, drawing all cityscapes like this is what I get influence from doing all that urban sketching. Really helps me to come up with scenes like this and draw that accurate perspective. All the figure drawing is going to help with these poses, especially costume figure drawing, to know how to draw folds in the clothing and things like that. I will also take reference photos, so I'll take, especially on poses that are more difficult, I'll photograph either myself or someone else doing similar poses to this. And this is where I really think about color influencing the emotion of a viewer, where I want each scene of this story to have an overall color scheme. So here, the city is kind of these greens and grays and purples. And then this big exciting action moment, I use a big bright saturated orange and yellow to separate it and make that the really exciting moment in the story. So this is Bomber Girl. She fights corporations and is trying to save America from its corporate overlords. So then more purple color tones there, purple and orange. And then we change scene. So we're into a prison now, so it's all of these kind of desaturated gross green colors. Different location, different color scheme. Okay, new location. So now we're almost, this is almost black and white. It's very desaturated. Raining, gray skies. We know this color scheme in Seattle in the Northwest. But it's so much easier for me to draw scenes like this because I've done so much work and so much practice. So really learn to love that practice, and it will make it easier. It will make you a better artist for when you want to create finished illustrations, whatever it may be. Paintings, illustrations, storyboards, comics. So for anyone that's creating representational art, whether it is a more fine art thing like oil paintings of different locations, drawing from life is going to help. Doing comics and animation, drawing from life is going to help. You'll just do it in a slightly different way. Then this bright saturated, almost neon green for this underground bunker. Then this scene I like because it builds towards some really bright colors. So we start out desaturated, very gray. The cops start harassing this guy. Bomber girl comes in to save the day. So the color, as you can see, is slowly getting brighter and brighter. We're starting to get a brighter blue, get more saturated purple. Then Bomber girl has bright orange on her. And now we're into the neon, very bright colors because we're into the action scene. So these action scenes, action panels will have brighter colors to match what is going on. But this has all helped because I have that understanding of color and when to use the desaturated colors, when to use the brighter colors. If you use bright colors throughout the story, it will be overwhelming to the viewer. If every panel looked like this, it would almost kind of hurt the viewer's eye. So you have to mix that in with desaturated, more calm panels. But it all builds on itself. So being able to do that practice allows me to do these finished illustrations just a lot more seamlessly and just really get excited and get inspiration for that. So learn to love the practice, and that will make your life much easier and hopefully create more inspiration and more interesting art as you're working. So that will pretty much be it for my artist talk. Again, feel free to follow me on Instagram. Check out my Instagram at Steers Drawings, or check out my website, andrewsteers.com, to see some more of my work. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can kind of just take some suggestions in here and apply it to your art making process. This isn't stuff I made up. This is stuff I've gathered from other artists, from art teachers I had while I was in art school, and just kind of tried to give you kind of the most important parts of the things I've learned to hopefully help you all become better artists, better draftsmen, and just better creatives overall. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it.